Now, let me get started. Okay, so for variables and geometric solids, okay, basically, yesterday we actually went through basics of Minecraft, okay, how to use it on your iPad. Of course, you can use it on your laptop as well, okay. Today, okay, we are going to look into some terms, okay, computing terms, computational thinking. We use things like variables, right? Or basically in coding, I should say, we use things like variables to store values inside, okay? And use loops, and we've actually kind of touched on that yesterday as well, but we're definitely making full use of loops today, especially when we want to repeat something over and over again, keep doing certain action over and over again, so that we can be very efficient in our coding, right? And we will build geometric shapes. Okay, we will learn how to make basic geometric shapes and create all sorts of cool stuff. Okay, so let's get into variables. Okay, if you've never seen this word before, okay, variables is just a fancy word, okay, of saying it's an object that can store values. All right, it's something that you use as a means of containing this value, right? And what do we mean by a value? Okay, so if your example, if we think about something called, let's say, a box, having a box called country, right? So the box is named this, right? And you can actually rename it to anything that you want, right? So maybe the box at first is named as Singapore. Okay, the value of whatever you put inside that box would actually be represented as Singapore, but you could replace that label and put Malaysia. So the value of the box is now Malaysia. Now, this is maybe a bit arbitrary, right? Why are we talking about the countries here? But what we're really talking about is the fact that you can name something, okay? You can name the variable something that makes sense to you, okay? Something that makes sense to you, okay? So whatever value that you put inside here, okay, represents that idea, okay, or that the purpose of that value is Singapore or it's Malaysia, okay. And when you want to find out what is that value, you just open the box and you can see exactly how much of the value there is. Okay, so we hold this information, okay, in these so-called boxes, all right, and they can change at any time, right? Because we can put things in and out the boxes, all right, they can change, right? So in a game, you're classic example is scores, right? You have a certain score that goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. Maybe if you have a bonus score, you get plus 10. Okay, you hit an enemy, you minus 1 okay, to your score, right? So the score values can change, right? So that's exactly what we would use it as an example, but you could be using a variable in so many other ways, right? So you could talk about temperature or the time or your class, okay, or whether students are even doing one of two things, either sitting or standing, right? So, variables can have different amounts of values. Like if you talk about temperature, your temperature can go from 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees. It can even go to 30.5, 30.8, 30.9. You have a whole range of values that could be used, or you could just have like 1 or 0 if a student is standing or sitting down, right? You could have it as 2 values even. So how do we make variables in Minecraft? Okay, basically we will be using the variables toolbox. Okay, when you press variables, right, in the toolbox, you will be able to create the variables that you need. Okay, so we can create variables very easily, and then we can get certain blocks to use, but let's see that in the context of making loops. Okay, so the other thing that we're using, right, a lot definitely is going to be the loops, so that we can repeat something, okay, as many times as we need to. And this word called iteration is a word that we often use in programming, okay, to repeat the code more than once. Okay, we will iterate through, and then as we iterate, okay, things will typically change, right, in the code. So we will use the loops, okay, the loops category over here. Okay, and if we want to loop something, all right, the programmer may basically say, let's iterate through this loop. It just means just run this code many times, okay, over and over again, repeating it. Of course, you can control how many times you're repeating it, okay? But the basic idea is if we use a loop, we're repeating that thing over and over again, okay? And anything that repeats, okay, is up for game, is up for, is valid, right? So if you're thinking of just about walking up, okay, just walking alone, you basically have to move your foot forward. First is your left, or maybe you start with your right. It doesn't matter. Whichever you start with, the other step would be to move the opposite foot. Okay, so step one is left foot forward. Step two could be right foot forward. And with these two steps, you're basically repeating it, right? So a loop would basically help you cut down your code instead of writing it, line by line, left foot forward, right foot forward, left foot forward, right foot forward. You could just put the word repeat or part of the repeat in the code, and the code will just loop back for you, right? So you don't have so many lines of code. You can have less lines of code. Of course, the question is how many times would you repeat it? Okay, and we'll get to that in a bit. So some real world examples here. You can see the honeycomb, or you can see this aqueduct over here. You can see the repeating pattern. Okay, and that's a real that's really something that we emphasize in computational thinking. Okay, one of the hallmarks is pattern recognition, right? Finding the patterns that you're going to be able to see in order to make use of your loops. Okay, to repeat something. So if you use this forever loop, all right, that means you are infinitely going to run it. Okay, as long as the program is running, or as long as the machine is on, okay, and running the program, you will basically run it the whole time. Okay, so a real life example could be the beating of your heart, or even if you are breathing, you can't stop it, right? Because once you do that, you basically die. So you would put this in a forever loop if you want this to repeat over and over again. Okay, but of course, if you want to control how many times you do something, simply use the repeat times loop. Okay, and you can state the number or the value that you want, how many times you want to repeat something, okay, inside here, right? So very simple to use the repeat times, okay, to have, if you have a particular number of things that you need to do. All right, so let's get into our first activity. All right, we're going to do this chicken storm, okay? And here's the code that we want to try out, okay? So from what we've learned yesterday, we need to use our chat commands, okay? So our chat command on chat chickens is what we're going to be using in this example. And we remember that the blue color or the green color or the purple color refers to the color of the blocks, okay, that you're going to look under. The repeat 4 times is going to be used with the spawn animal, right? And this is you want to choose the chicken egg, which is the red colored one. You can also mouse over or hover over, like, or tap to see the different names, the labels of the animals that would hatch out of it. But basically the spawn block under mobs is the one that will create the animals. And notice that we have a world position, a relative position block that's being used. X, Y, Z. Remember, the first block here is X, the second is Y, the third is Z. So that means the Y coordinate is +10, so it's above the player. Okay, it's going to spawn it above the player. And when you run the chicken command, okay, you should be seeing them drop from the sky, okay, above your head, above the player, exactly above the player's head. Okay, so try out this code, and if anyone have any issues, please sound out. Okay, don't forget you can just unmute yourself as well if it's quicker for you. Okay. Okay, so on chat command chickens, repeat 4 times, spawn the animal, okay, at the relative coordinates 0, 10, 0. Okay, so we learned that there are two types of coordinates from yesterday. We learned that if you see these approximation symbols, then that means it's relative coordinates relative to where the player is at any one point of time, right? This is different than using world coordinates, which would give you exact specific coordinates in the world, right? And this code should basically get you to see a chicken storm, right? Okay. What we're going to do is actually going to modify this code, right? So remember we were saying what can we do if in your code you want to actually specify the number of chickens or the number of animals that's actually going to be spawning. Okay, if you want to just specify that number, right? What we're going to do is we're going to add a parameter, okay, by pressing the plus button here, and you'll get this drop down menu. It should say num1, okay, and you'll be able to use this, okay, to control how many chickens you'll be spawning, okay, in the code, right? So basically what you're doing is, okay, you're adding this parameter into the code so that when the code runs, it will actually, you'll be able to actually specify how many chickens, okay, or how many times you want to use this code. Okay, what you'll need to do is go and click on your variables as well to create the variable, make a variable, right? And you want to use num1, the num1 variable. And you may not have all these other variables that you see here, okay, because you only have whatever that you've created before. So this was code that was done with this is some other code that was also running. So all these variables have been pre-created somewhere else. But for you, what you need to check is the num1 variable and drag it into your repeat block, your repeat times block, so that this variable, okay, that has been stored up here in your event handler, okay, it will be passed down to the repeat times block. Okay, you're storing the number that you will be typing in when the program runs, okay, under num1 over here, and it will be passed along into the repeat times block. Okay, so now you will not be saying that I will repeat the number 4 times, okay, unless you actually type in 4 as the value that you want to repeat, okay, when you run the code, okay. So basically what you do is when you now run the chat, just type in chickens 15, and then the variable that is num1 will actually be stored as 15. Okay, that means 15 has gone inside the num1 variable, and that will be able to carry out 15 repeats or 15 time repeats. Okay, and of course, if you change it to any other value, 25 or 35, that variable in num1 gets updated to that particular value. Okay. So now what we've done is we've passed a parameter, okay? We passed in, okay, the chicken command is a parameter. Is also known as an argument, right? There's a difference between the two, but we won't get into that, okay? But you may hear us say parameters or arguments, okay? And basically, this is how you can use variables to control what you're going to be doing with the code, right? In this case, how many times do you want to repeat the number of chickens that's going to be spawned, right? Or the number of animals that's going to be spawned. Okay, so your task here is basically just to create a storm of any animals, right? So now you can increase the number of animals to whatever number that you want, or at least see when you're going to break the system, right? Because I know some of you will want to try to spam it as much as you can. Okay, so in this case, when you are when you are running the code, okay, you would say chickens and then the number that you are referring to. So did you put in the did you when you did the chat command, did you write the number as well after the chickens?
So like for the name thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
So I have to write
Your-
chickens 15 instead of just chicken.
Correct, because it's expecting a parameter. Okay.
Oh,
In other
okay.
words, instead, before we added in the parameter, it was just on chat command chickens, and that will execute everything. But now you've added in another condition that you and another thing that you need to include, okay, in order for it to run. Because if it doesn't receive that value of 15 or whatever number, it doesn't have to be 15, it will not be able to. It will not pass anything into the repeat command over here, and it will not then run the repeat. Yeah. So
I wrote the number 15 after chickens,
correct.
but
You don't need, that's why you don't need to write a number, because if we use this example and say num1, this represents whatever number that you will be using in your commands. That's why you could say chicken 15 or 25 or 1000 or whatever number that you passed in the argument will be then passed on down into the variable. Yeah. All right, great. So let's see, what else can we do? Okay, so we've just gone through loops, all right? Geometric shapes. Okay. We're going to build some basic geometric shapes, and we can use the shapes blocks, all right, to do that. The advanced, it's under this advanced toolbox, okay, under advanced. So that's where the shapes toolbox is located in. And the shapes toolbox, you can see in this example, we're actually using a chat command sphere so that you can build a sphere and you can choose, okay, where the center of the sphere will be created at. Okay, notice that we're using the y coordinate. We're only changing the y coordinate, so that means just like our chickens, it's going to be right above our head. And we're choosing the radius of the sphere, because the sphere, right, is just a circle that's three-dimensional. So it still obeys the whole idea of using, radius or the formula for making a circle, right? So you need to choose that radius, and you get this blob, okay, this sphere of gold, okay, with a radius of 5 blocks, okay, right above your head, just as you see here. So obviously you can change these values, right, to resize the sphere to any shape that you want. Okay. You could also use lines and circles, all right? So in all these cases, we're just using a separate chat command and naming it however we would want to type it out, okay? And notice that if you use the line, they will ask you, okay, in all these examples, they will be basically asking you what block are you going to use to create the object, and then your then they need to take into account your coordinates. Okay, so for the line, they need to know starting coordinate and the ending coordinate. Okay, so in this case, we have changed the coordinates of the z coordinate, okay, from 0 to 100. Okay, so it will terminate at this coordinate here. For the circle, okay, to create a circle, you can see that we just need the center and the radius, just like the sphere, right? But there is one more parameter that they've included, which is around. All right, so we can choose whether we're going to go up and down or left and right. Okay, that means affecting the y values, the y coordinates, or the x or the z coordinates. All right, so you can just tap on the arrow to choose which around the parameter that you'll be using. Okay. So here's what you're going to do. Try and design your own planets, for example, right? If you're not sure what to do, of course, you can feel free to try anything. Okay. All right. But you can see over here, this picture consists of one sphere in the middle and 3 rings, okay, or 3 circles, right? 3 circles all around, okay, surrounding that one sphere, right? So obviously you'll be wanting to fly up in the air and you can have a good look all around, okay? Okay, now what you notice about this code is we have 3 variables that are being used, okay? So you can see over here, let me try to get my pointer. Oh, I know why, because I'm not using my slideshow. Okay, so you have to create 3 variables first, right? X, Y, and Z, all right? So you create these variables separately. And notice that we're using these parameters, okay, inside the circle of center world, right? So in this case, we are using, this one is not using relative coordinates, right? It's just using world coordinates. So it's up to you. You could use relative coordinates as well. But if we do it this way, right, the X, Y, and Z coordinates that are being used for creating this circle will be are tied into here, right? Are hard-coded, what we call hard-coded, okay, in the code over here. Okay, so this code will give us an exact approximation, not approximation, an exact value, okay, of where your circle, the center of your circle will be, right, in relation to the exact coordinates of your world, right? You can try to create this code exactly as it is, and then try to fly to this coordinates, okay, these world coordinates to view your object. Okay, of course, you could also just create your object right where you are, okay, but this is one way of doing it, okay. But another thing that's different is if you notice over here at the bottom, after you create that circle, right, you are going to change the Y value by 1, and then you will repeat this 10 times. Okay, so when you're changing the Y value by 1, notice that if you change it by 1, that means the next iteration of this code that will run will be from, in this case, we started from Y is 70, then the next iteration will be 71, the next iteration will be 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, and then 79, because it's repeating the circle code 10 times. So you're building 10 rings, 10 circles, right? But each time you build that circle, you are changing the Y value by 1, okay, positive value of 1. So your cylinder is going to be built layering upwards, okay, layering upwards. Okay, so try this one out. And this is basically how we're making a 3-dimensional shape, right? Using the circle shape block. All right, and another question that was asked about how to create water, because if you can't seem to collect the water, all right, you do need a bucket, all right, to collect the water in, or you need some sort of container to hold the water inside. Okay, a question about an agent getting lost. Okay, what should you do to get him back? Okay, remember that we do have the agent code blocks, and there is a block to teleport your agent back. All right, or you can create your code, your chat command so that when you type in, let's say here or something, you will come back to that spot, right? Teleport back into back to your coordinates, right? So go and look under your agent code. For that, I'm showing you, okay, my Minecraft, okay, under agent over here. You have agent teleport to player, right? You have that block, so you can easily put it as part of a chat code. You could put it as part of your main code, all right, so that he comes back to you, to your coordinates. More questions? Is it possible to create a triangle using the shapes? So since you notice that shapes doesn't have a specific block for triangle, right? So you can't use the shapes block directly, like they didn't engineer one for it, but you know how to make a shape of a triangle, right? You know how to make a two-dimensional shape of a triangle, right? If you know how to make a two-dimensional shape of a triangle, a three-dimensional shape is basically 2 dimensions, but you change the y value or the x value or the z value, right? You just change how many times you are making that shape. Like you're making a slice, right? Think of it as you're making a slice, just like what you're doing now with the cylinder. You're making one slice of the cylinder, and then you are just changing one particular axis that you want to create.
Yeah.
Now let's go on to showing you how we could build, all right, pyramids and cones, for example, like if someone's asking about building a triangle. Okay, so the idea here is, right, you're building by slice, okay, and we could actually use variables to help us reduce the number, okay, of reduce particular values that we need. As you can see with a cone or a pyramid, right, the bottom layer is larger than the subsequent upper layer, all right? So you can use the variables to adjust, okay, the size of the circle or the size of the square that you're building, all right, to achieve these particular geometric shapes, or these particular shapes in this case. Okay, you can also use the world coordinates, okay, by knowing exactly where you are, because you have to see your own coordinates on screen, and then you can use the world coordinates to precisely place everything, okay, instead of trying to do it relative to where you are sitting, where you are standing. Okay, so see whether you could build your own complex shape, right, by adding on, for example, a cylinder and a cone together could be used to build something like a castle turret, all right, or a tower. Okay, so by combining geometric shapes, okay, you can get, you know, more complex looking structures, okay, and basically you just, by breaking down, you know, the structure into its components, geometric shape components, right, you can see that you can get more interesting things. All right, so have a go and see whether you can do those kinds of shapes. What else do we have? Right, the last bit is about the builder. Okay, actually what I'll do is I will leave this as, you know, something that we can also create after I go through the last set of activity. Okay, activity 3. Okay, so let me do this first. All right, so what are we doing? Okay, what are we making use of here? We're using something called the builder, right? The builder, as you see, again, is in the advanced menu, and you're going to be using the builder basically as an invisible cursor, right? It's not the same as an agent. Okay, now the agent is actually going to be able to you can see actually every spot that the agent goes to, he will be able to execute the code that's being run. Okay, but when we use the builder is really more of a selection tool, right? If you're familiar with when you're doing graphic design or doing anything with graphics, okay? When you want to select objects and stuff like that, that's really what you're doing with the builder. You are actually going to select, in this case, a mark location and a copy location, right? Once you selected the mark and the copy, you will then be able to paste, okay? So basically it's a copy and paste command, and anything inside that volume that you see that's being created, okay, will be copied over. Okay, notice that in this example where what we get is a cube shape, right? Because we place the mark diagonally opposite from the copy, right, in the diagonal corner, and therefore you get a volume shape. And anything inside that volume is actually going to be copied. Okay, so that's the process. Okay, and this is the code that you would use, right? You can use the onchat command and say mark, okay, because first of all, you need to get the mark position, right? So the red one there. So this is, let's say you're standing on the ground, right? This is your position on the ground, for example. Then when you use the builder teleport tool, okay, you're telling the builder, which is invisible, remember, it's like an invisible agent, basically. You will get him to move to your position where you are standing and place that mark, right? Right, and place that mark. You could also do this while you're in the air, okay? But just as in this example, we're assuming that you are on the ground, okay? And once you build the mark, okay, you will then do the copy, right? And notice the difference in the copy command is to teleport your builder, okay, also to 0, 0, 0. That means what you would do is you yourself would go to the ending point, okay, the copy point, I should say, right? So you have to actually move yourself to the copy point, okay? Remember, you started off with the mark, okay? Then when you move yourself to the copy point, okay, when you run the copy command, you will ask your builder to teleport to where you are and build a copy from mark. Okay, so copy from mark means you are going to copy from the mark that you did, okay, the marking point, which is why you marked it first, and then now you're asking him to copy it from the mark. The final step is to go anywhere you want to, all right, anywhere you want to, and use the builder teleport again, so that you're going to be pasting from your location, okay, and then just ask him to paste. All right, so basically it's a copy and paste command, okay? And what does that do? It actually allows you to create multiple structures that can be as complex as you want. So all you need to do, all these structures are the same, okay, the same structures. Like, let's look at over here. What you need to do is, if you build one structure here, you can basically copy and paste and then replicate them in all these other spots. Okay, that's what the builder command is used for. Okay, is to copy and paste it, right? So try that out. Okay, that's our last major thing that we wanted to do. All right, so remember, let's create your code. Make sure that you create your code for your builder mark or builder place mark, right? So have these codes in, and then you can run them anytime that you want to copy over something. Okay, and the subsequent commands follow the same structure. You have the event handler, the onchat, you have the builder teleport where you want. The last command is the action that you want it to do. Okay, so this is to teleport, and then to copy and paste. Okay, the only difference with copy and paste now is what you name the event handler and the actual action that you take. Okay, because in all these examples, you are getting your builder to go to where you are before it then executes your command. Okay, let me put this side by side. Let's see, do I have it? There we go. Let's just put it like that. Okay. The very last section I have is actually about exporting and importing your worlds. All right. And I will want to see whether you want to try to do that, especially to be able to save and show your world. Right. So maybe let's also go through that. Okay. So the piece, the resistance, the final part that we should always aim for is the world, right? See whether we can, whether you can share your world with us so that we can have a look at it. Okay. And how do we do that? Okay. Basically, when you want to export your world, okay, I'll need you to try going to the Minecraft screenshot. I mean the start screen. Okay. Oh, let me change this. This is not Education Edition anymore. It's just Minecraft Education. Okay. So you'll need to actually exit out of your world so that you can go back to your home screen, your start screen, and under play, you have your view my worlds, and where you can see all the different worlds that you have, and then you can select your settings page. You want to go through the options to go to export world, and then that will allow you to save to an MC world file. Okay, so if you're on your iPads, okay, you'll be saving this to your download location in your Files app. Okay, otherwise, basically, you just need to find a location where you want it to save to, and then you can use that file to export it, to import it somewhere else. Okay, so when you want to import a file, you will basically use the import button instead. Okay, in your home page, after you click play, go to import, and then you can select your file from there. Okay, so let me show. Okay, if we are going to do this from Minecraft app, okay, or this is actually the Minecraft on my laptop. Okay, so let me save and exit out of here. Okay, so remember we are trying to export our file now. Okay, so make sure that you are in your start page of Minecraft. Okay, I'm already in the play area. Okay, let me just go out just to check. Okay, this is your start page. In play area, you have to go to play. You can view the worlds that you created. Right, let's say I try another one over here. Okay, let's say I want to save this one, and I tap on it or click, and you have manage. Okay, and there it is. Okay, I can export. Okay, I can export this particular file, and this is my world test. So I'm just rename it a bit. Okay, and then obviously save it to the location in your iPads. Okay, and therefore you've successfully exported it. So let me go and find it. Okay, when I go back to my start screen and I'm in play, you can see the import button is over here. And when you import, all right, just go to the location, find your MC world file format. Okay, my world test mc.mc world, and you can open it from there. All right, so you could actually go and save your world. Okay, post it on Padlet, save your world, share it with a friend. Okay, and have them look at it and try it out.